Okay, so today I'm joined by professional punter Jeff Laughton. Jeff, it's been a little while now since we chatted. We did a Star Sports betting people interview, and this is Simon Nott zooms in number 13. Hope you're not superstitious
No.
and had too much on today. And I was watching Jeff's channel, which we'll talk about later on. What he always says is what I need to follow is if you like what you see, subscribe. There's a button down the bottom there. If you subscribe, you get to know about when new content
Yeah,
comes up, and it helps us to generate a following, which is you want people to watch what you're doing. Anyway,
yeah.
so Jeff, first thing I need to ask you, I re-listened to our betting people interview this morning to make sure everything's fresh in my mind. And when you talked in there about your figures, how much of your figures been put away by the revelations by the bar stewards inquiry via the clerks of the courses that they just make it up?
You mean with a going stick?
Go in stick.
Listen, everybody said for years to me that they're never accurate. So I don't think it's this big, suddenly it's just a shock. I think whoever you spoke to, whether it's jockeys or trainers, they'll always tell you the same. They're not accurate. So you have to just take them on the chin and try and work around them and work to what you think they are.
Would your figures would tell you in retrospect what the going was on that day, so you would ignore the
Not really. I wouldn't go to that in depth with them where I'm trying to second guess the clerk of the course. But if he tells me it's good to firm, I have to work on that, even though we know they may not be. But unless you're there yourself and taking the measurements yourself, you're never going to know. So you're just going to have to take it and say, well, this is as near as what we're going to get.
Okay, so how have things been going for you since we last spoke?
Yeah, had a very good year last year. Very good winter. Just this last, and really, it happens every year when you get the transition from the jumps to the flat. This first month, I always think is very difficult, and you always think I'm going to take a little bit of a pull and just let it settle down, and then you get sucked into one, and so the last 2 3 weeks for me have been iffy. To be fair, if I'm being totally honest. But we got together last January, if I remember rightly, and yeah, I had a good year. I don't like giving it back once I've got it though.
It's interesting because I one of the other things I've been doing on here recently started with Andrew Mount is going back through old systems cuttings that I found from the 80s. I've had a big pile of them that I religiously cut out from the Weekender. And one of the things there was about uh, April and October. Now, there was a
Yeah,
bookie that we used to bet with, waved the white flag to Andrew eventually, but he always said that he was happy to take him on in April.
yeah.
And this system appears to bear some, some relevance. So maybe
And it,
everybody should just not bet in April, is it?
well, it's true because I said the transition from the jumps to the flat, but even by this time, the ground is getting a lot quicker over jumps. And ideally, you won't cut in the ground for jumpers. You don't need it heavy, but you definitely need cut in the ground. So when the ground's good ground, you're finding that form book is not working out. And horses that haven't run since October on the flat, you're trying to get over a 6 month break. So that's got to be the reason in April why people do find it hard, and I'm one of them.
You think it's a case of trying to find out what goes wrong, or would it be a time for you to go on one of your exotic holidays?
I've only just got back, so I've got to get some work done now. I've been away most of the winter.
Have you had to? I know it's not that long ago we spoke, and you've been doing this for years. Have you had to adapt the way you've done things since we last spoke?
No, not really. I think what I've done pretty similar for the last 30 years. Obviously, you do look to tweak things year on year to try and make it better. But I think realistically, what I've done for 30 years is what I'm always going to do.
Yeah. It's mainly flat you do, isn't it? So this is your busy time of the year coming up now.
Yeah, I mean, I do work in winter. I used to take winters off, but I found it very expensive not to work at all. So now I take my laptop so anywhere in the world where I go, and I'll work from wherever I am. But yeah, sort of April to mid end of September is sort of the busiest months of the year for me.
And one of the things I was interested in when I re-listened to your interview, the previous one, but you said when you're on holiday you use your VPN. I mean, when you're like, for example, I don't know how often you go to Australia, but when you're there, would you would you sort of seek out a bookmaker that would take bets on English racing to do it that way, to save your accounts?
No, not really. I just tend to use VPNs, but bookmakers are getting quite smart with the VPNs. Even using them, some of the bookmakers don't let you in.
And that's really only just because they're not allowed to take bets from that
No,
jurisdiction. It's
I
a bit of
understand.
a yeah, but
I
it's you know like it's from an English person though, isn't it? So he's not really doing anything sneaky. It's just being able to get your
no.
bet on, isn't it?
I mean, I could ring you and say, "Go into my account, Simon, and place this bet for me."
I can
So,
do that
so
if you like, Jeff.
no.
Do you own any horses at the moment?
Funny enough, I haven't at the moment. We sold the last one in October last year, which was a horse called Assertively, which all my recent horses I share with Carl Burke. We have 50% apiece. And at this moment in time, Carl's absolutely full to the rafters. Everybody's sending him horses. So we haven't got one. There are some breeze ups still to come, so we might get one. But if I take a year out, I'm not that bothered. I find it as much of a distraction as anything else. Than I don't. I've had 75 winners now with my own horses, so I'm not desperate to have number 76.
Would I be right in saying that owning horses is still a luxury and a pleasure, even for somebody like you, rather than a way of making money?
Yes, definitely not a way to make money. Although I've been very, very fortunate with some of the horses that I've owned recently that we sold, like horses like Unfortunately that won the Prix Morny. But I don't think you can get into it ever thinking you're going to make money out of it. I think when I first got into it, I thought, this is a route to get information from trainers that is not available to anybody else. No, that's not true because most trainers are not bettors per se. They'll have an odd bet, but they don't study a race. They'll look at their own horse, but they don't study a race. So um, I don't think if you're thinking about getting into racehorse ownership, don't do it because you think you're going to win fortunes from the bookies because I don't think that's true.
No, I mean I've got a couple of very very tiny, sort of 5%, 2.5%
Yeah,
shares, and I think
exactly that.
what it does, it opens your eyes that it's the opposite, isn't it? Most of the time, it's chucking a few darts to try and find out what the
Yeah,
horse would really, but and then if you stumble upon its ideal conditions, you stumble upon it rather than some sort of master plan.
yeah, yeah.
But it is good fun. It is good fun, and it's like a lucky dip, isn't it? Really, if you
It is, and
pick out a winner, then
yeah, there's plenty of disappointments. I mean, I was very fortunate that the very first horse I owned won on its debut, and I thought, oh, this is easy.
that's a tremendous story. It's all going to go downhill from here, is what the
Yeah,
trainer said, wasn't it?
yeah, and that was Peter Chappell. I am all them years ago.
Yeah, that was great. I know you're a good friend of, you won't mind me mentioning his name, Dean Valentine.
Yeah, very good
Now,
friend.
I did a betting people follow up with Dean Valentine where we entitled it Dean Valentine Let's Rip.
I
Now,
saw
unfortunately,
that.
Dean did let rip, and he let rip a little bit too much, and he named names, and he put the world to rights, which it's a
Yeah,
real shame. It was hilarious, but for a fairly obvious reason, Star Sports, they had a steward's inquiry. They
yeah,
said we can't put this out. I
and
mean,
I get that.
yeah. But you were mentioned in it, as was the name of the bookmaker, which please don't mention because I can't
I
afford to
won't.
lose everything by being sued.
Yeah, I won't.
But you basically got knocked. because somebody else put the bets on for you, which is their rules now. Well, you're not allowed to do that, even though I think most of us would think it's all part of the game. It's cat and mouse, and we want, But did you ever get paid?
No. Basically, we put, I think from memory, I think we put £1,400 in the account, built it up to 8,400, and they sent the 1,400 back and said, we're keeping the 7 grand.
Oh, so you did get your.
I got my stake back.
They still
Yeah.
roast on you, didn't they?
Yeah, but I tell you what really is ironic here. I had 2 other accounts with them that lost money, but they didn't find them. They didn't associate them. So I didn't get them stakes back. All one way, Bookmaker. Listen, I'm with Dean on this. I don't have a lot of time for Bookmakers.
They're not they're not looking at the losing accounts in the same sort of forensic sort of depth, are they? How can we not win off this fellow? Doesn't really come into it. Are you do you sort of are you and Dean sort of to get, are you into stuff together, or are you just mates? Are you because he was quite happily talking to me about this circle of winners that he's got around him. Are you part of that sort of inner circle?
Yeah, well, Dean would move probably 75% of my bets. So obviously he uses my information, I right. assume, for some level. But we're good mates. We've been on holiday together, and we chat literally every day.
Okay, so I mean, I know you said in the previous interview that you don't sort of would do you get, if he says, look, we got someone here you need to be on, do you get that sort of info? Or is it literally just a moving money getting you on sort of?
Yeah, Dean doesn't study the form like I would do or speak to people like I would do. Dean takes his information from somebody wanting to move a big amount of money. So he might ask me about a particular horse, but it wouldn't be often I would say to Dean, is there anything sharp today that I need to know about? I mean, I've done it in the past, but it wouldn't be a regular thing.
Okay, there's something I noticed in my previous interview with you that I didn't ask you. You put a lot of time, so you get up early to study the day's racing, etc. Yeah. What form do you use? Like race form, pro form, the racing what's your tools?
Okay. So, well, first of all, I started 5 o'clock this morning, and that would be pretty normal. In fact, as the sun comes up earlier, it'll probably be earlier than that. But I would base mine around race form. And having watched all the races, I'll make a lot of notes on particular horses, which on race form, it's like the tracker on Racing Post. So it'll come up and tell me if a horse that I've made notes on is running and all that. So I study my own ratings as well. I study what race forms say, and then of course I watch the videos, and that is where it all comes from. Everything together. I'm like, you're on one PC, I've got one to my right, one to my left. So I'm literally using 3 computers at any one time.
Okay, right. So would you, and you're like understandably a little bit coy about exactly what you're rated, what you put the most emphasis on with your ratings. But can you give people a little bit of an idea? I mean, would it be speed? What are you looking for?
I think if you were to start off from scratch, the best ratings to use before you develop your own are the Racing Post ratings. I think they're very accurate. I then put my own spin on it from there. So if you wanted a base level of where do I get in, because you watch a horse run, how you give that horse a figure. You can't just make one up in your brain. So you've got to use something that gives you ratings, like time form, like Racing Post ratings. So I would start off a lot of the time until I get into my own figures with Racing Post ratings. And then I develop them from there. What I see in the race, adjusting them. Horses got an easy lead and it probably doesn't run to that figure again, or vice versa. They're being held up and they need marking up. So that's how I started. But it's like trying to make a sauce in cooking. You have to have that base to try and start from. And it's very similar with ratings. You have to start from somewhere, and then they develop over the years.
Because this now, from what I was listening to it, it's the time of year where you'd really come into your own because you say you're
Yeah,
sort of watching 2-year-old races and you think, well, that horse didn't really know what it was doing. It was green
yeah,
as grass. It was looking around. Next time up, so do you have like in your own head benchmark about
yeah,
how much it might improve, which you can't really tangibly sort of put down
yeah.
into figures?
Yeah, I think Racing Post ratings will work on pure fact, where it finished, and they'll start off with the winner, and then per length they will adjust horses down. They don't always. I mean, I'm not saying they don't, but don't always adjust horses out the back and then think that could run another £5-7 better than that. Whereas my figures will take into that. So I'm looking for next time. The figure I've got is where I'm thinking they're going to run next time.
Okay, now I know we're only talking just over 12 months ago or whatever, but you said it's quite funny. You said that if you ran past a load of dustbins, you look impressive.
It's
Do
true.
you and then you look into the figures, and actually the horse didn't beat an awful lot.
Yeah.
Do you think the media still get carried away before they look into actually what the horse achieved? And are you surprised how often that still happens?
Yeah, I mean, most of this comes from, it's from a top yard in Newmarket. It becomes like almost like a snowball effect where it gets bigger every time it's told. And yeah, and if you look at the facts, it might look mega impressive in the run, but the horses that it's beating, if they're absolutely useless, and I go back to the adage that you just said, if I run past dustbins, I'm going to look impressive. And so that's where figures, I think, comes into it. People who don't use figures, then I get told all the time. I speak to people every day. Oh, that was mega impressive. And you look at each figure that it's run to, and you think, but it's beat nothing. It's your eyes that are lying to you, and it's easy done. It's what you hear and what you see tell lies. What you read and what you is down on paper that you've made work, they are the things that I believe, not just what people tell me.
And is it possible that a horse looks impressive, has beat nothing, but has done a sort of time that
Yeah,
then you would say, well, hang on, it's beat nothing, but it's
that's
still,
exactly. Yeah.
yeah,
So if it's done the time, it can achieve that. It's like athletics. Somebody will run the personal best and then they'll beat it. They might run against worse athletes, but if they score a bigger figure on the clock or a lesser figure on the clock, you know that that's what they can achieve.
yeah. Now we talked earlier about you got knocked for what, 7 grand or whatever it was. I think
Yeah.
7 or 8 grand. So professional punters, obviously, by very nature, have a problem. No bookmaker really wants to take
Yeah.
a bet off a professional punter. Let's go on course, of course. On course, you can get a bet.
Yeah.
If you're a face, you can get a bet. So mention the on course bookies there. But it's sort of treated like a criminal, even though all he's trying to do is have a bet with a bookmaker. His job is to take bets. And they also, as you found out, they can use it as a reason not to pay you because that was Jeff Laughton's money, not yours. We're not
Correct.
paying.
Yeah.
Um, are you still trying to get? And on that interview, you said you're trying to get about. You sort of bet about 8 to 10 grand a day. Is that
Yeah.
still the sort of figure that you're trying to get on?
Probably a bit more. Certainly now at this time of year, probably a bit more.
So
Um,
is turnover the more turnover you get, the more you're going to win in the long game? Is that the way you think of it?
yeah, ideally, I don't want to. If I'm doing an extra 50% turnover, I don't want to stand still to what I'm earning, of course.
I know.
But getting on, that's it is difficult. And people have said, I noticed the comments when I did the interview for Star Sports. People are saying, "Oh, you can't get on. It's not real. You can't get on." Well, you can if you have people like Dean, who I couldn't do a fraction of what I do without Dean.
He's got a network. He's obviously got a network that's been growing for
Yeah,
years.
I mean, the bookmakers respect his opinions, and they're happy to lose 1,500, a couple of grand, so they can 8:30 in the morning, so they can reduce the price in the betting shop and save 30, 40 grand.
Yeah.
It's a sprat to catch the mackerel.
But I mean, really, once you boil it all down, it's a legitimate game of cat and mouse, isn't it? You're
Well,
not doing anything
absolutely.
wrong. It's just they've made
Yeah.
it like you are. Now, you did say when we spoke before that you record every single bet.
Yeah.
You've got figures going back. Has have you worked out what your margin would be, as in you sort of winning, how much of a percentage of turnover you'd, and has it
No,
changed over the years?
no, that's. I see people say, "Oh, they've won 10% of the outlay." Or what. I've never worked on them figures, to be honest, Simon. I just purely know what I'm trying to achieve, what I'm trying to win from any one bet, and then I take my figures daily and weekly and obviously monthly.
Okay. Now, have you changed since you got knocked? Have you changed the way you get money on, since obviously you're still using Dean? What I'm trying to say is, have you gone over to the dark side?
Um, well, funnily enough, um, a pal of mine approached me over Christmas and he said, I've got this bookmaker in Dubai that will lay literally any bet. And I said, "Oh, yeah, I've heard it before." And I've been knocked 5, 6, 7 times. So I was very, very dubious. And he said to me, I'll guarantee the payment. So whatever you win, even if they don't pay me, I'll pay you. And I went, okay. I trusted him to do that. He said, I'll pay you every week. And they did. They were very good. And I won't name them now, but we could get on the night before. We could get any price I wanted. We could get on first thing in the morning. And literally, and my mate he was having, I think he said 3 times whatever I was having on, and I won 42 grand off him in 6 weeks. So his win was 120 grand. And he paid me and he got my money because he was doing it on a week to week, but they actually knocked him for his 120 grand. So they didn't pay him.
I was going to say, as soon as you started that story, the alarm bells,
Yeah.
because they're going to end up with a load of punters like you. I
Yeah.
mean, you could have what you like on
Yeah.
immediately. Ding-a-ling-a-ling.
Well, he did say to me afterwards, he said, they offered me 30% kickback on any losing punters. He said, so I introduced people thinking I'm going to make some money out of it. And of course it went the other way. And they lost a chunk, but he ended up losing a chunk as well. It was inevitable.
Yeah.
Nobody's gonna do that for long. But as I
First
say, I
rule of
got 42 grand out of it. So
luckily you got paid. But I mean, surely the first rule of recommending affiliate business is not to recommend professional punters, isn't
well, that was their get out. That was their get out to not pay him because they said he was obviously a professional gambler. Because it was just one of them 6 weeks periods where I could have backed the village cat and it would have won. Everything was winning. And if they'd have stuck around this last month, they'd probably got most of it back.
Yeah, people wave the white flag a bit early
Yeah.
sometimes, don't they? But so right, Jeff. Well, we start at the beginning. We mentioned that you always say to people, your channel. I've watched it a few times. So you're giving the information that you've already given out your private service, but you're giving it out after the price
11
is gone,
o'clock.
basically. Yeah.
11 o'clock.
So
I think what I'm trying to do, Simon, is not, and I make that clear on there, I'm not doing a tipping channel.
yeah,
I'm
you say that. Yeah.
basically trying to educate people out of it. I have this hatred of bookmakers. And if I can get anybody to win money, then I would love it. So I just want to try and teach people who lose how to just either not lose as much or to win just by telling the races to look at. I don't actually say I've done it. I did it yesterday over one because I put one up to my private service yesterday that was 4-1, but it was only 13-8 when I told them on my channel.
Yeah.
Normally, I don't tell them. I just look at the race and say, these are the horses that I'm looking at. I think that might win. But I might look at 6 or 7 races where I've only had one like yesterday, I think I looked at 7 or 8 races. I only had one bet. So I'm not doing it to try and say, this is a tipping channel, aren't I clever? I'm trying to say, look at the races where you've got a chance of winning. When the bookmakers got realistically 6, 7, 8 horses running for them, run a mile. Because, you know, you're one man against 7. Normally, when I'm looking to bet in a race, I'm looking where there's 3 realistic runners that can win it. I'm not saying that always works, but I don't want all the bookmakers' horses running against me. You know, I prefer things on my terms.
Now, like I say, I watched that yesterday's. So people can learn a lot, like you just talked about there. But you do a private service. Now,
Yeah.
I don't even have to. We haven't even put this video up yet, obviously, but I know it's a 101 chance that somewhere in the comments below, somebody's going to say, "Well, if Jeff Laughton's that clever, why is he doing a private service?" So he
Yeah.
can answer them before they even waste their breath.
Well, I'd back that at 101 any day of the week because I stopped any comments. So,
Well, they'll be under this one. They'll all be slagging you
all
off on
right,
this
yeah,
one if they.
yeah.
So I've got to
Well,
keep
I
the
don't,
comments going for reach. You see, I haven't got the followers that you've got, so I've got to keep it.
Simon, I don't mind if anybody or nobody joins. It's, you know, I can generate my own clients, not from there, because I do find that social media is not what it used to be. Now, bear in mind, I've been doing this for 30 odd years. And I used to send as many as 14,000 letters a week, genuine through the letterbox letters. Obviously, and I'm talking when stamps were like 14p a time. God knows what they are now. So that went by the wayside. And now you see all these people coming up on social media, waving betting slips and sending. So for some reason, they always send in a screenshot of Bet365 and they've always got 65 million in the top corner and they've won 40,000. And you think, oh, please. I bet most of these, well, I know most of these, if they had 400 quid on a horse, they'd shit themselves. You know, but yet they're telling you what they should do and they're coming in helicopters and all this and that.
You weren't Ryan Hartley, were you? Because I found a Ryan Hartley letter from 1985 this morning.
Oh no.
I used to send £2 off to Ryan Hartley in Newmarket.
Oh, no.
It was good fun. I didn't come to too much harm, did I? All right, then, Jeff. Well, thanks very much for your time. Once again, if you like what you've seen in these things, and if follow Jeff because it is very informative. I've subscribed to you, so if they look at my subscriptions and just look for Jeff Laughton,
Okay, man.
they'll find it. Yeah, so thanks a lot for your time, Jeff.
Anytime, man.
Really appreciate it, and good luck.
Cheers,
And
buddy.
we'll be still betting in April.
Probably, yeah. I'll probably never learn.
We'll ask you again in October.
Okay, mate.
All
Take
right,
care,
Jeff.
Sam.
Thank you very much. Cheers, mate.
Cheers, buddy. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Hello, everyone. Just a quick one. If you have enjoyed these videos and are enjoying these videos, can you please like and subscribe to my channel? Thanks very much.